Welcome to Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and share our stories of connection to essence, to that which is bigger than us, to the big picture, to what we're really here for, and getting activated on that again and remembering it and moving forward and getting unstuck from whatever little eddy we got trapped into for a couple decades and moving forward into the new part. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and boy, I sure love having these conversations with high-powered individuals who have gotten unstuck, and it's such a relief to see it out there. You know it's possible when you see somebody like this doing it, and you can do it for yourself too, because that's what I do. I help get people unstuck. So, if you're interested in that, let's talk about Butterfly Circle. But in the meantime, today I want to introduce you to my good friend, Deborah Hurwitz. Welcome, Deborah.
Hello, Carrie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Check this out. Deborah is so cool. So she helps ambitious professionals to break through the paralysis of perfectionism and procrastination so they can complete the projects and goals that matter most to them. Do you guys have procrastination and perfectionism out there? Probably just a tad. So this is a little smidge. So Deborah is a composer, conductor, and recording artist who internationally acclaimed projects include Cirque du Soleil, Cyndi Lauper, and the Broadway smash hit Jersey Boys. It's so freaking awesome. She's written, arranged, and produced music for television shows ranging from Sesame Street to Bravo's $1 Million Listing. She released 2 independent CDs as a singer-songwriter, Deborah Marlowe. And she's performed on the Tonight Show. It's like, wow, the Tony Awards, and twice at the White House. That is so freaking cool. She's a career artist and online entrepreneur, and Deborah has mastered the art of monotasking, eliminating doubts and distractions to achieve remarkable industry success while honoring her creative self-expression and personal integrity. And now she helps a tribe of 15,000 strong to do the same through her online shows and mission accomplished coaching programs. Deborah is also an award-winning speaker and co-author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, She Made It Happen, 22 inspiring stories from female entrepreneurs around the world. So, Deborah.
Hello.
I love that you combine the creative artistic spirit with like getting it done. Because that's a challenge for a lot of artistic types,
Yes, absolutely. I've always had a real fascination with the whole left brain, right brain thing. There's always been, a huge disparity and camaraderie kind of between my brain hemispheres. I have a very highly developed masculine, and for a long time I had a really poorly developed feminine. However, I'm super right brain creative, and music came on very early, writing came on very early, lots of creativity came on very early, and I was like a little daddy's girl who learned to like think like a man and be logical and be linear and get shit done, right? And so as I grew up with all the little foibles and trials and tribulations and things like that, there were ways in which I would, approach musical things or creative things or things that are normally associated with la-di-da or not a lot of organization, things like being an artist with, tremendous structure, accountability, and organization, like spreadsheets and budgets and things like that. And that was always kind of a superpower of mine that I didn't really recognize as a superpower. It was just this way that I was, and made my way through full-time show business career for a couple decades. Happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about with that. And hit many, many, many stumbling blocks along the way, as you know, as in most industries, but especially in entertainment. For every success you see, there are 100 failures and, ignominious defeats that you don't, right? So there was a lot of up and down. But when it came time to actually start looking at where I wanted to put my entrepreneurial energy, what sort of business I wanted to develop, or how I could help people, what I realized was that there was this way in which most of us are walking around going, if I'm creative, I can't also be organized. If I sing to my soul or for my soul, I can't also make a bunch of money. Like, there's this kind of starving artist or alienated creative, or the shaman on the mountaintop. We've talked a bit about shamans, and we can get into that. Like the person who sort of like goes into the woods and finds the message and then like delivers it at a fire circle, but that person can't be in a corporate boardroom because their head would explode, right? Like that's not actually true about how we are and what's possible for us, right? And so and so what I discovered also was that not only is there this kind of like creativity and organization or material success type of dichotomy, but there's also a way in which we have the same stuck points across multiple genres and departments. Like I've done, had many businesses, many businesses. I had several businesses. In the course of having an artist career, you've got, 20 businesses
Yeah, lots of
at
streams
once.
of income too.
But I also, yeah, lots of streams of income. But I also launched and ran successfully a network marketing business for about 5 years. It was kind of my transition from being a full-time artist to now having a coaching business that I love. And I've realized that the exact same things were hanging up a new consultant who was trying to build a business or book a meeting or sell a client on a product, right? Like the same things were coming up for that entrepreneur, just like with their little to-do list that day or their little teeny business that day, that were coming up for like the biggest songwriters in Nashville who were facing a blank page and saying, you're only as good as your last gig and what have you done for me lately? It was the same moments of, oh God, right? It's the
Yeah,
same.
what am I gonna do now?
What
Uh-oh.
you're like, I don't wanna, I can't, like, don't make me, or what if I suck, or this really matters to me, and so I don't want to fail. And for a perfectionist mind, like, we will do anything to avoid failing, including feeling deeply pained and disappointed in ourselves over and over again for not doing the thing we wanted to do or said we would do. We would much rather, it's hard to hear you guys, I know we're jumping right into some tough stuff, but like, we would much rather stay stuck and in pain, feeling wads of self-loathing, regret, and recrimination. We would actually rather be there than take the chance on doing the thing and failing and then having it be proven once and for all that we're worthless.
Yeah, that is such a big deal. I remember when I finally landed on my purpose, I thought, uh-oh, I have to actually do this and I can't fail at it. Like I can't just say, oh, just kidding.
And just yeah, the uh-oh feeling is really important. And let me just
Yeah.
say, like, when I should put big air quotes around proving that I'm worthless, because of course we're not worthless. Of course we're not
No,
worthless,
it's
right?
an
But that's the
idea.
fear and that's the feeling, right? And the idea that we can't fail, like, you have to fail. You have to fail many, many, many times to get to every level of success that you want. And when you hit whatever that level of success is, you're gonna have to fail some more to get to the next level of success. Like, I have little failures all the time, even though my coaching business is relatively new. It's only about 2.5 years old, but I have, by all material measures, skyrocketed multiple six figures. I hit six figures in under 10 months, and I'm on track for seven figures fairly soon. And I say this not to be like, la la la, I'm so great, but to say, like, I did not see this coming. And I am not sitting here going, like, I'm measuring my business by the money, although business by definition, you do measure by the money, and that's okay. Like, that's totally valid. You can measure all sorts of success by all sorts of other metrics besides money. But if you're talking about growing a business, you're talking about money. It's just a little side note. We can get into that later. That's the other thing
Yeah.
that artists have. We have a hard time owning. We have a hard time
Yeah,
owning
owning the
any
money.
structure, including financial planning type of structure or business projections. We have a tough time owning structure because that relates to accountability, and we don't want to be accountable because, again, what if we fail? But anyway, sideline to say, even in this short time when a lot has happened that has gone really well, and compared to my decades in show business, much higher percentage of wins to losses, which I'm grateful for. But still, there are tons of failures along the way, tons of things. I was just on a consultation yesterday for my live event coming up, and it's like, or by the time this airs, I'll probably have passed, but it was like, 15 things in the last year that were little failures or little disappointments or little things that didn't go quite the way I hoped they would, that were now, as I go to launching a new thing, showing up like, ooh, that sucked. I don't want to do that again. I failed there. I don't want to try that again. Right. Like, and those are normal responses, like really normal, understandable responses. But if it's the end of the story, you're going to have a problem getting where you want to go if you're not already there.
Yeah, you got to keep stepping. I keep one of the major things I have with my students that I notice time and time again is that they it's practice. Like spirituality is the same as a business, an entrepreneur. It's the same thing. You are the entrepreneur of your life, your soul's destiny, as you would be an entrepreneur of a business.
Right.
So when you really want
Oh,
to
yeah.
self-actualize, right?
Yeah.
You have to take the steps every day and learn from the things that happen every day. You have to keep stepping.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to practice and set time aside for that reflection on like how did today go, or to be with yourself and be tuned in and present in the moment, not like off somewhere thinking about something else. And you got to know where you're going. Like you have to have a golden line. I call it the golden line. You got to have the golden line to where you're going, and you're going to go on the golden line. I see people all the time don't have a golden line, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then they're like off doing that thing. And it's like, oh, I got inspired by this thing. And now they're like,
Bro, bright shiny object.
Hi, like shiny objects, like seriously. And I used to be this way too. That's why I can laugh about it. But you got to get on the golden line and know where you're going, and then trust as you're guided there. That's where you follow the synchronicities. Is you set the golden line, and then you follow all the little things that lead you to the thing. But
so it's funny when you say golden line, you know, this like raises all sorts of hackles and flags for perfectionists, because I know there are so many, like I teach 6 productivity myths and 10 productivity rules. And one of the productivity myths that especially writers, artists, but anyone who, as you said, the entrepreneur of your life or the creator of your life, the owner of your life, right? Like we're all looking to be that, even if we technically work for other people or don't own our own businesses or whatever. And anyone who's trying to produce or create anything in their life, meaning if you're still breathing, you're subject to these. And one of the productivity myths is I must know what I'm creating before I start. This is a myth that we all believe. And so as soon as you say, and it's not true, it's 100% not true. You actually cannot know in any way, shape, or form what you're creating before you start. You might have an idea. I'm writing a song, or I'm writing a book, or I'm sending an email, or I'm building a business, or I'm doing a workshop, right? Like there are all sorts of things you might think, but in terms of actually sitting down to make the thing, you don't know what the thing is going to be before you've started.
And if you do know, like I love Martin Luther King, because he says you only see the first step. And I know that's because he was working on such a big mission that it was God's mission. God, source, creator, great spirit, universe, whatever your word is. It's all inclusive here. But it was like, that's the big mission he's on. So he only sees the next step. He doesn't know. And I always tell my students, if you see the whole staircase, that's your ego. You planned the whole thing out, but then you're only achieving like this, where you could be achieving this. Like,
but so this is the point about the golden line, why I respond to this with that productivity myth, is that when a perfectionist, especially, and when I say perfectionist, by the way, I'm not talking about any sort of like clinical definition, right? I just say perfectionist to encapsulate that type of brain that is my brain. As you say, I can laugh about this because I've been this person. Same thing with me, right? I'm a recovering perfectionist. So on the range from people pleasing to control freaking and everything in between,
all of that, yes.
All of that. And so when you say golden line, my first thought is, what if I don't know what that is? What if I don't have the right answer? What if I don't know what I want to do or where I want to go? Or what if I have some ideas, but I don't know how to make that happen? I don't know if that can happen. I don't know if that's really my thing. What if nobody buys? What if nobody wants? But that sort of thing. And so when you talk about golden line, I think it's really important to define that. I'm sort of interested in what you mean by that. And people call it the North Star. People call it your big why. That it's that piece of like, what's connected to why you're getting out of bed in the morning, right?
Yeah, so, there's like
what you want to land.
Multiple golden lines, So let's just say I know, like, for example, I knew I was going to go on this annual retreat with my spiritual group. I'm like, okay, I'm going on this annual retreat. So I'm like, okay, going there, annual retreat, golden line. Like to the annual retreat, anything that needs the money needs to come for that. It's all going to come because I'm on the golden line to that thing. Like in a bigger sense, when I tell people like the bigger picture thing, it's like, okay, let's say they want a new relationship. How do you want to feel in a relationship? How do you really want to feel? What do you want it to feel like?
Yeah.
What are some things like, like for me, it was like, when he holds me, all my problems go away. When I feel totally appreciated.
Kate German. No, just kidding.
It actually has happened, though. I put myself on the golden line of it, and I have a husband that does that. He holds me, all my problems go away. I don't feel them anymore.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's
I know,
adorable.
Right? So you don't have to know like who the person is or like how, the details about. So forget the details.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that perfectionists can't stand. I'm telling people, forget the details. Go for the feeling of it, the gist of it, and let spirit fill in the details.
So you're talking about two different, a little bit apples and oranges that are really important, and they both correspond to the golden line piece. But this is really, this might be helpful to your perfectionist, right? Because yeah, fucking details. Oh, sorry. Do we curse on this podcast or not?
Totally fine. I'm rated adults.
Excellent. So you're talking about two different aspects of this golden line concept, or North Star, whatever it is. The thing that's going to keep you on track, right? Like what your guiding principle is for deciding what you're going to do, or choosing your actions, prioritizing, that sort of thing. You're talking about one is a desired state, right? What we call an NLP, the desired state. We have our unwanted present state and our desired state. Here's where I am. Here's where I want to be. What's the gap to close? And where it's a great idea to forget the details is there. Great idea to forget the details of what my lover's hair will be or what languages he will speak, right? I've got a friend who we joke, it's like she's got this image of like the perfect man, and it's like, first he will speak to me in French, then he will hold out his hand, and she's got this like script that nobody's going to cooperate with at all, right?
Right.
But the desired state is things like, as you said, when he holds me, all my problems go away, right? The desired state is going to be, I'm cuddled up with someone every night and I can rest and I know I'm safe. Or I have someone who loves to adventure with me. Or when I look at his smile, I just melt, right? Like that sort of thing, or hers or theirs or whatever, right? You know, like the desired state, how do you want to feel? How will this show up? Most of the time, people who want something, when we want something, it's not that we necessarily want that thing. It's that thing is something we associate with how we want to feel. What we think will be possible or available for us, right? So sometimes when we're investigating why somebody was like, I want to write a book, but they hate to write. Now, don't get me wrong, lots of writers hate to write. That's another part of the conversation. But they don't like writing. They don't want to do a long form project. They don't want to deal with it. Why did they want a book? Well, after much questioning, it turned out it's not that they wanted the book. It's that they wanted a platform of credibility. And they felt like a book was sort of like the granddaddy of credibility platforms, as opposed to just a blog or just an Instagram or just, right? A book was like, now you're a real writer. So there's credibility and authenticity there. And there was a way in which they wanted to be known. And what it ultimately turned out to be, in the case of the particular person I'm thinking of, was that they actually wanted acknowledgement and validation from their siblings.
So true. Yeah, down to the root cause.
It ended up being just a completely different set of stuff. I had this client make a bunch of videos and do some TED Talk applications. And now she's just like, she literally said, I finally have a way to like be in the current political climate and I'm the happiest I've ever been. And there's no book in sight, right? And she may have ultimately write a book, but so we're talking about a desired state. And so and in that way, not only forget the details, forget the big stuff. You go from thinking I want to write a book to it turns out I need to have a conversation with my sister, right? It's like, you don't worry about the details and don't even worry about like the big aspects of what, but the golden line is, how do I want to feel? What do I think this thing will give me or make possible for me? What will be available as a result of having this thing I want? That's the question to ask and answer again and again and again. There's one aspect of your golden line. That's great. Now here's the other piece, which is where the perfectionist need not let go of the details. And in fact, we can't. So the other piece of it is, what are you up to? What's your top priority right now? What is the thing that is bounded in time? On Covey's time matrix, we have like priorities of urgent versus important. And you can have things that are urgent. It's a fire you got to put out right now, right? Like I had this appointment with you today at 8:30 this morning. There was shit that I needed to get out of the way before I hopped onto this call with you right now, right? That is bounded in time. That stuff is urgent. Now, the trick is to prioritize what's important and not necessarily urgent. Now, in the case of your event, that was a little of both. It was urgent in that it was time bound, it was time sensitive. You couldn't do it 6 months from now. The event is sooner than that, right? But it's also important to you. You defined it. There are a bunch of other things that could have been urgent and taken your time, right? There could have been emails you could have responded to, or, sales that were going to end, or, the weekend activities that were only going to happen that one Saturday. There might have been all sorts of shit that was like time sensitive and you could rate it as urgent. Certainly people are coming to us all the time. Your entire email, like when people get bogged down in email, that's everybody else's agenda, you guys. It's not your agenda.
It's everybody else's agenda. Yeah.
We get bogged. That's a Brendan Burchard thing and it's brilliant. Your email is everyone else's desires and priorities. What you decide are your desires and priorities is elsewhere. That's your time to write, create, etc. So you had an event that was important. It was urgent in that it was time sensitive, you prioritized. As the event got closer, I'm sure you were attending to more and more details about it, right? So whatever came into your purview and on your radar was like, it was like a binary choice. This is event or not event. Event goes in the pile. Is it something I need to deal with now, or can it go to next week? I'll deal with it now, right? Like you then prioritize down the line. It's like nested tables or those nested dolls.
Yeah, it's logic,
Nested dolls,
actually. And I do
right?
this naturally too. For my dad taught me how to do this. I love that you're spelling this all out for me, because I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I do.
So when you have someone who's like holding on to the details or who's worried about how it needs to look, you want to like get clear. And I'll speak to your audience. If you're sitting here like, I'm afraid to start something because I don't know how exactly it's going to look, I'm worried that I might fail, I don't know what to do first, I don't know how to ensure success or something like that, the first golden line piece, and I really like your golden line metaphor, I can totally work with that. The first piece is like, why am I doing this? Why does this matter to me? Why is this important? How do I define success at this thing? Right? And maybe it's metrics like subscribers or dollars or whatever it might be. Maybe it's how you want to feel, right? A desired, and even the metrics still correspond to a desired state. I'm successful if the number is 1,000. I'm unsuccessful if the number is 200, right? Whatever that is, right? So it's like, even if you've got metrics, targets that you're aiming for, why? Why does that matter? Why this number instead of that number? Why this person instead of that person? What is it that makes this a successful venture for you? What will having that do for you? So
Oh
that's
man, numbers are a really tricky thing. Talk about that, because putting numbers on stuff, I found mixed results with.
well, it depends on where those numbers are coming from.
Yeah,
Right?
how do you find the numbers? I guess that's what I would like to know. Like, how do you find your numbers?
It's a great question. Now, of course, it's a broad question because numbers can apply to so many things. You want to narrow it down ever so slightly? Like when you're thinking of numbers can be tricky, what sorts of numbers are you thinking of?
Well, like when I think about, let's say I'm leading a group to Peru.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's my first retreat to Peru. And I've noticed that I get zealous. I get a little overzealous. I get excited.
Don't judge yourself. You're nice. It's fantastic.
I get really excited. Okay.
Yeah.
And I go, I can handle everything. That's me. I'm like, I can handle all of it, everything. And then I'm like, oh man, I'm going to take this trip and I'm going to have people on plant medicine and all kinds of things. And I'm like, you know what? I want 26 people. Right. And I get like, yeah, I want 26 people. And then a little while later, I start to think about 26 people and managing that many people my first time out. And I started
Who are tripping.
I'm like,
and how many people do you have for this thing?
See, right now,
your team. Your team, not your enrollees. Like how many people do you have helping you with the 26?
How many people do I have helping me with it? I have me and my husband, and we're staying with Daniel Gutierrez, who has led retreats for like 30 years. So we're staying at his retreat. So I have good backup. So I have a good backup person. I have a good person to help me.
So where did the 26 come from?
I think it came from my birthday is June 26th, and we're going from June 21st to 27th. So I think that's where it came. It's a very illogical number. And I think it just came because I wanted, I like that number.
Yeah. So you got an intuitive hit of 26.
Yeah.
And then what was the very next thing that you thought about the 26?
Well, I started thinking about magical thinking. I have magical thinking about things.
Yeah.
I often think magically. I think this is really good for our audience because I think we have a lot of magical thinkers in this audience. Yeah. And then I go, oh, well, it will just happen. Like, it'll just happen. So when I kicked off the year, I kicked off a year of transformation.
So Carrie, let me stop you for a second.
I thought they would just sign up. I thought the 26 people would just come in.
Okay. So
I'm setting you up and me up too, because I know the answer to this question, but I want you to share it with everybody.
So magical thinking is one of those fun phrases. For me, magical thinking is not an asset, it's a liability.
Exactly, because it leads to a lot of crazy outcomes.
Yeah. Now, let's separate out magical. So I would define magical thinking as a way of projecting or planning that does not take into account facts, does not take into account
reasonable
action plans, the number of hours in the day, your human body that's not a machine, right? Like you need sleep, right? Like magical thinking is putting a dream out into the world with no legs under it and no avenue to victory, right? Like no avenue where it can happen. And usually magical thinking is accompanied by a stalwart lack of action. So
because if it
magical,
doesn't happen, like if you put your big thing out and they're like, oh,
right, but put your big thing out. I'm going to put air quotes around that too, because there's a way of putting something out there that's sourced in energy, intuition, vision, being unreasonable. I'm all about being unreasonable. Be unreasonable. Being reasonable is the same thing as being mediocre or compromising or being dead.
Okay, cool.
Fuck
So that part of
right?
magical thinking is totally welcome. Be
Right.
unreasonable.
When you're talking about, and again, like magical thinking, it's an arbitrary phrase that we're deciding things about right now, right? So it can be good or
I
bad.
like that word. It's fun because it kind of characterizes a lot of these healer types and people that are creative.
Exactly. So when you are sitting there having a dream or a vision or an idea, that's great. Get all the intuitive hits. Like my friend Samantha Bennett says, never refuse the download, right? Like you got a downloaded book in 3 months. Awesome. Never refuse the download. Have a way to capture that. Then what's the action plan? Like if you believe in God, how is God going to help you? Right? It's like there are all so many jokes around there about, and we don't have time to get into like the whole thing.
There's so many.
There's so many jokes.
I sent you the
about,
boat like 3 times.
I sent you the boat. I sent you the plane. What the hell's wrong with you? Right? Like, this whole idea of like, what miracle do you need to see to get that it's time for you to get on board and go too?
And go do it, taking the steps.
Yeah, exactly. So you set me up with, I just snapped my fingers and thought people would call me, find my phone number out of nowhere.
And just magically get directed to me because I dreamed it, and so it must be going to happen.
Exactly. So the first thing you want to do when you have that number, so let's say 26 hits you, you're like, that's the number. And sure, it's a good idea if you have no idea of any, metrics or industry standards around whatever it is that you might be doing for the first time. It can be a good idea to like research, hey, about how many people is it a good idea to take with you on a plant medicine international retreat when it's just been my husband for my first time? Like it might be a good idea to sort of check that out. I'm going to guess that 26 is a high number. I don't know.
High. It's high, right? Actually. Most people take about like 8 to 10,
Exactly,
which
right?
is what I have right now. So,
Yeah, and that's fine, and you can end up changing it. But to take this analogy further, to really because like I really appreciate that you're talking about this. It's so freaking important.
It's a real world example
under your vision, right? So it's perfectly fine to be unreasonable and say, okay, reasonable is 8 to 10 people. That's what people do for the first time. I want to do 20, or I want to do 26. Okay, great. Now you start to investigate, why is that important to me? Why does that matter to me? What will having that do for me? Do I want to break records? Do I want to, create a particular kind of community that's only available to 26 people or more? Right? Like, what will having that do for me? And just get into that space of what's that all about? Maybe there's a revenue goal that you have, right? Maybe and that's totally fine, right? Sometimes I get an intuitive hit on a number. I add it up. It's that much money in the bank. Great, that's the number. Now let's put legs under it. Right? Can you support those people? Because why it's important to you to do that retreat is to change people's lives.
Exactly.
So you're going to make sure that you deliver. So what is it going to take for me to deliver for 26 people? Now you start to put those plans. Now you start to get real about what it takes. Are you willing to put in the action forgetting even enrolling the 26 people, although I know that's important to a lot of our listeners, but working backwards from, I want 26 people in the room. Okay, now you're in the room. How are you delivering to 26 people? What's the infrastructure for that? What's the investment for that? What's it going to take out of you and your body? You just told me before you started recording, you need your sleep. I agree. I need my sleep. I get real fucking cranky if I get less than 6 hours, and I don't like to do that for more than a day, and I'm beat by the end of that one day. I know people who brag about, I get 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, and I've done it for years. I'm like, you're walking around drunk half the time in your life, right? It's like, it's not good for your brain. It's not good for your life, and it's not good for your people. So like, what's it going to take for you to deliver to those 26 people? Now you start putting in some structures. Now maybe it looks like, and I'm not saying that you would change your 26, maybe it's still 26, but maybe after you start looking at what it takes to deliver, much less enroll, now you're looking at, okay, for the scope of this, what feels right, what feels into my soul good is, let me shoot for 15 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I was thinking 16. I kind of backed off to 26 because I was like, oh, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be 7 whole days with people
But
and really intense,
yeah,
you know, like
right, exactly.
having
So you
huge
start to feel
transformation.
into,
Yeah,
right, you
I
start to
started
feel into
feeling
what it
into
takes,
the
not from
reality
the
of it.
standpoint of I'm limited or the world is against me
No,
or nobody's done
of
that before.
service, of like
Right, from the
with natural
standpoint of what do I
capacity.
want to, right, it's generative, right? It's
Yeah.
generative and generous in terms of what are my priorities, what matters to me, where can I deliver, what feels right, all that kind of stuff, right? And you brought up another point before, which I think is also really important in terms of the magical thinkers and the healers, which is I'm zealous or I'm overzealous, and then I go for it and I make big claims and I put my shit out there and then I go, goink, oops, what did I do?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So a really nice flow or system or infrastructure that you might want to set up for yourself, you meaning the collective you who's like, I have a burst of energy, I'm going to run with it, and then I'm in trouble and it's too much and I'm overwhelmed, is give yourself permission to have all that energy. You are not too much. You are not overzealous. You are not overambitious. You don't want too much. You're not too big for your britches. Fuck all that, okay? I get mad about that shit. Right? You have
Yeah,
it all. Have
that's
all that
right.
energy. Have all that want. Have all that desire. Like my friend Liana Silver says, your hunger is holy, right?
Oh,
Like
your hunger
bring
is
it.
holy. I
Your
like that.
hunger is holy, right? Bring it. And then see what is that generating for you to bring, to change, to write, to create, to do. What are you willing to hold yourself accountable to deliver? And maybe take just the first step. Maybe you're big, well, I'm at 26 people at my plant-based medicine. Yeah. And so, great. Maybe the first thing you do with that is start to feel into like the impact that will have, the difference you're going to be able to make, what it is that you're going to have in the room with you, who it is you're going to have in the room with you, right? And start to just journal on that and envision. And then as you go, as you like journal for 10 minutes a day on the vision of your 26 people and the plant-based retreat, and you start to feel into how that looks, how that shows up, how you show up, how they show up, what they're getting, what it becomes, then some details are going to start to come forward and you're going to be like, well, with that circle, the way I like to do it, actually 26 people is kind of a lot. Maybe what's the circle I really want? And then you start to refine your vision. And then you start to make smart choices about what's next, about how to prioritize your actions, your investments, your resources, such that the vision you truly desire is there. The number may be a holy sacred number that you must cling to, like your life depends on it and hit that target no matter what, or the number might be an arbitrary little blip that showed up and it's not actually essential to your vision. You talked about essence at the beginning of this. What is essential to the vision? What is the top priority? Right? Picking out your wardrobe for day 2 of the retreat is probably not as important
Not so important.
as booking the venue, right? Like it's probably not as important as getting down your vision for the promise of the retreat. It's probably, like people devote crazy amounts of anxiety, and I won't even say time, because they don't actually write it or make it, they just feel anxious about it. We devote tremendous amounts of anxiety to the details of the thing before we've actually made space for the thing to exist. And when I say make space for the thing to exist, I'm saying sell it. I'm saying market it. I'm saying write your blurb about it. I'm saying talk to a friend, a coach, an accountability buddy, your favorite Facebook group, and say, I want to make this. How much time should I leave to make it? Hold yourself accountable for the creation of it. I'm in a course right now by airtime. We'll be done with the first round. Every single course, program, etc. that I have created, I've sold first. Every single time, including my very first sales call, which I didn't even realize was a sales call at the time, with my very first client, who I didn't even realize was a coaching client at the time. I just sold a mentorship that I made up on the spot for $10,000 in my first sales call as the coach that I am now. But it was fledgling and I didn't even know I was going to call myself a coach. I called myself a mentor and I sold a $10,000 mentorship to a person who to this day is incredibly happy that he made that investment. Right. And because I was bringing forward what I wanted to accomplish in terms of my desired state, the impact I wanted to have, what I wanted life to look like on the other side of this behemoth, scary obstacle mountain, right? And then from there, I created things on the spot. Another one of my productivity rules is learn how to riff. Learn how to riff.
Learn how to riff. Well, yeah, you got to roll with
Learn
it.
how to riff, which of course comes from like the musical standpoint of improvising on an instrument or on a voice. But riffing is a life skill. Riffing is a life skill. You have got to be able to free generate, free write, free talk, free think. Set your mind on a topic or a question and go. You process the deer in the headlights response out of your system so you can I can go into any interview, any stage, I'm not saying I can like give a 45-minute keynote or do a 2-hour workshop with zero preparation. I don't recommend that you do. But I've all but eliminated deer in the headlights from my lexicon because I practice riffing. I practice being uncomfortable. I practice putting myself on the spot. Right? And that is actually like a higher form of that kind of just let it happen, go with the flow piece that we all want. People are like, let it happen, go with the flow. But then when the light turns on, then they're like, I can't talk about what I do. I can't make an offer. I can't describe to you my skill set.
That's because people are afraid of being exposed. Okay. Like people are afraid of being exposed for being not perfect. So you notice how like in this interview, like I totally was not perfect. Because I'm intentionally not perfect. I do that on purpose because I want to give people a permission to not be perfect, right? Because I was willing to share that, which was, I'd already kind of worked through a lot, but what you provided, like, wow, I wish I'd had that during the process of me working out the numbers. It would have been really helpful. But, you know, it's like, because that way it gives you a chance to shine your gift and for everybody to go, oh, that Carrie Hummingbird, she's willing to do it. I can probably be vulnerable. You don't have to be all, you know, this is not, none of us is everybody's perfect and everyone's in process.
Yeah. Yes. You know, I'll give you an example from this morning because something I want people like, first of all, don't feel so bad about like everything that we're saying right now. Everybody's like, especially the perfectionists, I guarantee are like, oh, I'm doing that wrong. I'm doing that wrong. I should have done that. I wish I'd done that. Right. Like all sorts of like, oh, so much wrong. So first of all, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. You're good. You're good exactly where you are. Recognize that even with all the right systems in place, even with like, oh, you know, you're debunking all the productivity myths and you're following all the productivity rules and all that good stuff, there's still going to be shit that happens, right? Resistance is still something that will arise to any work in progress that brings about a desired state. And so just like even this morning, right, I have contracted a new agency to build out my sales team, right? And so, don't get me wrong, I love selling. I'm not actually like dying to get rid of the selling in my business, because if I love what I'm selling and I love the promise of what I'm selling and I can deliver on that promise, I will sell all day long. It's a huge source of energy for me. And so it's not like I'm dying to offload that. It's just that in terms of my business projections and where I'm going, I need to not be on the phone during those times. Somebody else needs to be on the phone and I need to be doing other things in my business. So, but it's a big leap, not just the investment. I put down the deposit fairly easily. That was like, I'm at a point now where the money is not the big issue anymore. It's the offloading. It's the delegating. It's the handing over control. It's having someone else represent me, someone else being responsible for my results. I, as a control freaking perfectionist, have a hugely tough time with that. So I put it on the calendar this morning, even though it was a 5-minute thing, to just open the email, click on the link, and sign the DocuSign contract that I've already gone over. There were like 2 little things that I needed to check that were changed. And it was a 5-minute thing, but I was going to do it all weekend and I didn't do it. And I knew once I got into my day, I was going to push it off again. Not because it takes all the time in the world, not because I haven't already made the decision. I've made the decision, but that actual signature of the contract represented something to me. And I didn't know how hard it was until it came time to do it. I knew it was something I wanted to do, so I put it in the calendar. It was one of the things that I wanted to do before I started like my interview day today, right? And I got to that piece on the calendar. I went to my emails to grab the link, and I started to answer another email. I caught myself a minute into starting to answer that other email, which was nowhere near urgent, something that I could do anytime this week, and actually something that any one of my 3 assistants could do. But I started to do it, and I caught myself. And I literally, Carrie, this is what I did. I went, stop. And I just brought my attention back to the contract I put on the calendar to sign. I gave myself a half an hour to do it. This was why. I didn't know exactly what was going to come up. I didn't predict that level of resistance. I just know how this shit goes, and I know how I need to process this sort of thing so shit gets done that matters, that actually moves the needle. And it would have been easy to say, well, that email needed to get done. I needed to send those numbers to that person and answer that person. This is all really important. It totally needed to happen. That's not the needle moving act. From 8:30 to 9 this morning, the most important thing was to get that contract signed and get this process in motion that is going to roll out over the next 4 months and double my business this year, right? And so I stopped. I caught myself. So this is it. You can catch yourself anytime, you guys. You don't have to do it perfectly.
You can catch yourself right in the moment and bring yourself back to
right
present.
now, right? And then I caught myself and I stopped and I took a moment and I got present in that moment to the fear. Because that's what perfectionism is, you guys. It's the fear. It's fear of not looking good. It's fear of failing. It's fear of rejection, criticism. You're already doing it to yourself. You treat yourself worse than anybody else does. You push yourself harder than anybody else does. And you're worried that everybody else is going to come in and say that nasty shit that you're saying to yourself. Guess what? They're not, but that's another
topic. They'll be nicer to you than you are to you.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So I stopped. I got present to the fear. What does this mean? And even as I'm doing it right now, I can get present to it again. I'm handing over my baby. I'm handing over my business. I'm handing over my lifeline, my pipeline, my people. I'm handing it over. Right? Now, of course, there's going to be tons of training and accountability. Like, this is not like, okay, bye, good luck, right? Like, there's so much structure here, but that doesn't matter. We can have all the facts, all the good reasons in the world. And our resistance, our little critter brain, our 5-year-old child in the driver's seat will still be freaking the fuck out that this is happening.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm doing this. Why am I doing this?
I can't believe I'm doing this. Yeah.
So I can't do it all myself.
Right? And I have lots of tools. I recommend tools, you guys. I recommend mentorships, programs, coaches, people you can trust, right? Like, I have my tools and I have a particular process that I do that takes about 10 seconds that's checking in with a particular kind of guardian angel in my right brain and in my heart and in my gut and in my hara, the oracle between your legs, as Liana says, right? That's another conversation, right? And just to really check in and get, is this congruent with my vision? Is this aligned with where I said I'm willing to go? Might not want to go there right in this second. Oh my God, anywhere but there, please. But is it aligned with where I said I was willing to go? Where I committed to going? Yes. Okay. Sign. Go. Boom. Got it done.
Yeah,
now,
and do it before you back out.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Mel Robbins' 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go rule.
Yeah. Just do it.
Yeah.
That's the Nike brand.
You know? Nike brand.
It has a value to it. When you know it's right, you got to act.
Yeah. And even if in the moment you don't feel like I know it's right, like this is the buzzwords, you just know it's right. It might not feel right because your resistance and your inner critic are loud. It might feel awful. Yeah. Yes. But is it congruent with the commitment you made? Is it a fulfillment of the commitment you already made? And when you made that commitment, what was that feeling? What is the goal that you want to achieve that commitment moves forward? What do you really want? You want to be scared and powerful? Or you want to get where you actually said you wanted to go yesterday before the panic set in?
Yeah, it's like cold feet at the wedding, right? It's the same thing.
Wedding, exactly.
It's cold feet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to keep going for it. Wow. Powerful.
Yeah.
God, this has been power-packed, Deborah.
Yay. I get riled up, as you can see.
You do. You have so much energy. I still want to look up your human design type. Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome. We'll look that up. So perfect. So how do people get started with you? Because I know by the time this comes out, it's going to be middle of April. And so
perfect. That's actually perfect timing. So people should go to productivityforperfectionists.com. And I have a yearly Mission Accomplished program that I launched that's fantastic. And if you're interested in finding out more, that's a great way to do it. If you just go to Productivity for Perfectionists, you'll get on my list. You'll get a lot of free stuff. Interviews, resources, videos, things on getting unstuck, how to identify your most important goals, that kind of thing. And, we can get acquainted that way. I personally read every email I receive, and either my team or I will respond, but any question that you have will get answered within 24 to 48 business hours. That's our promise. So head on over to productivityforperfectionists.com, send us your name and email, and we will be in touch with answers to any questions that you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, that's great. So I like to give people kisses on the way out, but before I do, I want to encourage everybody, please like and subscribe to Soul Nectar Show. So, and share out this episode to anybody that you know who's also a perfectionist, who could use a little help and who would love like to just be inspired by Deborah and how like certain she is and the energy she has, and this like powerful discussion we just had today that our heads just like spun around, you know, like with all the insights. So just, you know, send this out to anybody that you know that would really be inspired by this and share it out. So appreciate that. We're also on YouTube, so like and subscribe there. And okay, now we're gonna do kisses. Here comes the kisses, because you guys, you liked and subscribed, so now here comes kisses.
Yay!
Give rewards. Okay, so here they come. Have a great week, everybody. See you next time on Soul Nectar Show.
Bye.